Hey, what's up, guys? This is Garrett Shackelford, and thank you for joining us on the first ever GuideTech podcast. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Logan Moe. Logan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Logan Moe. I'm the founder and CEO here at Mallard Bay. And, about 3.5 years ago, I tried to plan a trip for my dad and I to go on a guided duck hunt in Oklahoma. When we got there, we ended up finding out that we were double booked. So, that was disappointing. We only ended up firing maybe a shot the whole time we were there and cut the trip short. So that prompted me to look into, hey, how are guides and outfitters booking and managing their calendars? And what we discovered was that most outfitters are using outdated tools. And so that's why I started Mallard Bay, was to help outfitters manage their business. And Garrett, I'll let you kind of talk about how you came into
Yeah.
the mix, but I'm excited to be
Yeah.
doing this as a marketer, and also to talk and educate outfitters on what we do and how we think about marketing at Mallard Bay.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the VP of marketing here at Mallard Bay. I wasn't always here at Mallard Bay when they first started. Sadly, I wish I was here when we had kicked it off, but no, me and a buddy, Nick, who also works here at Mallard Bay, we started a media company, and first off started with outfitters, a fishing charter in Arkansas, and immediately saw the results that we were getting and saw this niche and the need in the industry. And so we dove into that full time, leaving our jobs. And honestly, just pursued that. Mallard Bay ended up being one of our clients, and we just saw that synergy. And so we joined on, and honestly, from there, it was kind of off to the races. There was some changes, and we'll talk more about business change as we get into this and adaptation. But yeah, that's how we got started. And my wife for doing this, honestly, is, when I first saw those results from working with that first outfitter, it was a light switch moment for me that I have a skill set that I learned in a different industry that I can bring over here and truly start to make a change in such a traditional industry that has been around forever. But with that, they haven't adapted to technology. And so now being able to bring that in and see it like directly impact these people, kind of flip that switch for me. And I feel like that's kind of what God's called me to do. And so my hopes with this podcast is that we're just able to give valuable tips, tricks, advice, that they can take that into their business and honestly use it to not only grow their business, but get a grasp on it and see like how it functions and the possibilities, and see like where they're at isn't the limit. They're not at their cap, that they can expand and grow, or just get a better control of it and pass it on in a legacy. So yeah, that's what I, started doing this for, and why I'm excited to talk about it. So,
Yeah. Digging
go.
more into like the why, why are we doing this? I mean, the way we ended up coming up with the idea of doing the GuideTech
Okay.
podcast was because I wrote down a ton of content ideas on how we could help outfitters with free educational content about what we've learned being in the industry for 3.5 years. And neither of us, me or Garrett, have kind of gotten to share that at scale. So, ultimately working with 358 different outfitters and, the 110 outfitters that are on GuideTech, like we've learned a ton, but we haven't figured out a way to communicate that at scale. So this is our attempt, our kind of beta test of doing that. And so, we want your feedback on what do you want us to talk about, right? Like this is for you as guides and people in the industry to learn about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and ultimately the how do we do things, or how do we think about things really, and kind of give that perspective. So of course we're doing it for the company and the greater good of like putting out marketing, really good marketing content, but ultimately you rip all that away. We're just trying to provide value to the potential customers out there and to our customers that we have now, as we are just looking for an efficient medium to reach them while they're in their truck scouting, right? Or, wherever they may be, right? So with that being said, Garrett, what is GuideTech?
Yeah.
Why is GuideTech a thing? Because it was your idea, right? And
Right.
why, where does Mallard Bay come into the mix?
Yeah. So GuideTech was originally an idea for Bourbon Media when me and Nick were running it, and it wasn't what it is now. It was not as well thought out as it is now because it took that team and everyone here coming on and like their experience with working with outfitters and truly understanding them alongside me and Nick's experience on the marketing side of stuff and knowing what those problems were. And so GuideTech is an all-in-one solution for outfitters. It is a software and it is a marketplace for listing your trips as well as a huge pile of different marketing services that we can add on to that. And so it's different from our competitors in the sense that the relationship that we have, that partnership that we have a full-time account manager that works with our outfitters, that truly builds that relationships, works to sell their trips with them and handle things when they're out in the field. And so it it definitely was a pivot for Mallard Bay, but it was something that was needed. I know from talking with guys that have been on at Mallard Bay since conception, the co-founders, that they were pursuing the marketplace Airbnb side of listing trips, but the outfitters were coming to them asking for other solutions and honestly just telling what their true pain points were. And so when we were in talks of Mallard Bay buying Bourbon Media, we discussed this GuideTech idea at the beginning, and where we could plug in to start solving those problems. And then once we came on, we kind of set it to the side for a little bit so we could, integrate our teams. But then after that, we all got together, discussed all these different problems that we've had, and it's had different iterations since we launched it the first time. I mean, truly, when we push it out, that's why we're doing this. We haven't done a great job of sharing with the outfitters what exactly we do for them, but this is our chance now to do that. And so we just want outfitters to know that there is a solution for any problem that you have, and we have that solution right here, and it's all in one place. So that's why we did it. I mean, the problems that the outfitters were having, like, it goes back to every industry has a problem, but the real thing is, like, everyone here, we care about outfitters and we care about hunting. We all grew up doing this. We grew up around outfitters. People that work within our company have worked at outfitters before. And so it's just a community that we've all grown up like in love with, and that's been our passion. And so being able to take skill sets that each one of us have and be able to lift up this industry in the way that we do has been the most impactful thing for me. And like, waking up in the morning to go to work, I know some people like just dread going to that 9 to 5, but for me it's like completely different because I know the impact that it's going to have for these guys, and it's truly a product that I believe in. So that's kind of why we did it. Well, obviously we're here to like run a business and make money, but we do it at a way that it benefits other people, and the only way that we win is if they win. And so that's, when I wake up in the morning, and like, that's my why for like what I do. But with starting
Mhm.
GuideTech, that was just like, I don't know, it clicked for me. And then just to see everyone else on the team see that was big for me. And it just gets me excited every day. So yeah, that's kind of the why behind it.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. Like GuideTech for me, and as a founder, was an aha moment whenever we acquired Bourbon Media. And I we'll dig into this later in like culture and company culture and stuff, but like the us versus them mentality when you make an acquisition, or maybe you merge an outfitter with another outfitter, you're going to have competing ideas and conflicts, and it's always going to be like, oh well, the Bourbon Media team XYZ. GuideTech was the offer that we created together that was like, hey, this is our new product and offer coming out to the world of the guides in the industry. Because previously, like, Mallard Bay being a marketplace wasn't serving the need of like what keeps an outfitter up at night, right? So ultimately, that's a big pivot in a business, but that was a year ago, right? And now we have more capabilities and more talent and more resources than we ever had before, and so that gives us a platform to talk about it from a sense of like, hey, this is something real, but we're honestly not here to sell you GuideTech. We're really here to talk about all things guiding industry, outfitting industry, really business in general, because we've realized that, hey, we have built something great here, and it's not easy to be a startup and build a technology company, but we have learned something along the way, and also we've learned about what makes a great outfitter and what makes the ones that don't survive, right? So let's talk about that for a second. Like, the topic that I wanted to talk about on this podcast specifically was uh, in business, fundamentally, if you are resistant to change, and I say resistant to change for a specific reason, because sometimes you don't need to change things. Like, I get it. Sometimes it's not easy to change, but once you realize that, hey, if I change this piece, or if I did this, then I could grow my business, or I could have more time to spend with my family. If you are resistant to doing those things that you think you should do, that is a very, very big problem that any industry deals with in business. This day and age with technology and the way things are going, you can't do things the way you always have and expect to get the same results over and over again. There's plenty of things that you're likely doing right, and you want to double down on those things. But the things that you end up questioning or learning about your operation, or how things can be improved, or dynamics between your head guide and one of your guides, or you and another guide, and how those relationships are important. And sometimes that can manifest itself in clients receiving bad service, right? Which ultimately would mean they don't come back. And
Right.
and so in this moment, we're taking an opportunity to kind of be like, hey, look, we're asking you to change a part of your business. We're not asking you to change you. We're just asking to change something that will help give you time back, right? And eventually save you time and money, right? But in a broader sense, Garrett, why do you believe the industry itself is so resistant to change?
Yeah, so I think there's two things. I think there's a resistance to change, and then I think there's a lack of knowledge, to be honest. And it's not a lack of knowledge of, like, I don't know how to put it, but they just don't know what is out there. And that's on our part to make sure that they're aware of what's out there. And it makes me think of this story that I was told one time. And it's about a daughter who, it was her turn to take over cooking the Thanksgiving ham at her family's Christmas. And she was in there with her husband, and he was watching her, and she cut off both ends of the ham. And then she put it on the pan and put it in the oven. And the husband asked her, "Why'd you just cut off and throw away those two halves of the ham? They were perfectly fine, and that, we could have eaten that." And she said, "Honestly, I don't know." So she went into the living room and asked her mother, "Hey, Mom, I grew up, watching you cook this Thanksgiving ham for us, and you always cut off the ends of it. And I just assumed that's what I was supposed to do." And her mom said, "Well, that's what I grew up watching my mother do. And she always just cut off the two ends of the ham." And so they decided, "Hey, let's call up grandma and see why we're cutting off these two ends of the ham." And they called up the grandma and asked her, "Hey, we've been cutting off the two ends of the ham. We grew up watching you do that. Why do we do it?" And the grandmother just started laughing and said, "It's because the only pan I had could fit half the ham." And so this whole time, they've been passing down generations for generations, like cutting off, wasting it. So they're wasting their money, wasting valuable resources, and they're wasting their time by going and cutting it when they have pans that can fit the entire ham. So that, to me, is what somewhat happens in this hunting industry from my experience. Is because of the tradition that's so wrapped up in this, and passing these down, these these great outfits that operated at their peak performance in the 50s, 60s, and 70s before technology, and before companies like ours. They did things how they could with the resources that they had, and now they have a pan big enough to fit the full ham, and that's companies like us or resources out there. Again, we're not trying to sell you on GuideTech, but we're just trying to sell you on adapting to change, and understanding that just because it was done one way in the past doesn't mean that that's the way you have to do it. And I worked at a company in the past, and we had a core value, and it was called shoot the sacred cow. And all that means is you have ways of doing things that you've learned from other people or other jobs in the past. And in the hunting industry, most of these guides they've been guiding them most of their life, whether it's with a different outfit and they go and start their own, or it's been passed down to them and they see how things are done then, and then they just adopt that as they get older and start their own outfit. And so now they've become accustomed to those ways of doing things, and it actually hurts them. They're losing resources by throwing out opportunities to change how they do things. They're throwing out their time, which time is money, as we all know. And so that would be my biggest thing within this industry. And what I think is happening is I've done it this way my whole life because I was shown how to do that. Not that I don't know that there's any other, resources or anything like that out there. So, but on the resistance side, I guess, going past the not knowing that there's opportunities to save time and make more money. Yeah, I mean, I think it's stubbornness. I think I've done this my whole life this way. I mean, we'll be honest here. Like, I think it is stubbornness, and I've faced the same thing within how I've done things. I've had to adapt and learn, and then I say, hey, okay, this way's the way to do it. So,
Yeah.
and we've seen that with outfitters. I mean, can you think of an example of an outfitter who, might have been tough at the beginning to land, or was hesitant pushing off towards this change, but then once they did it, it was eye-opening to them?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the the customer that comes to mind immediately is Whiskey Slews. Being someone that like literally left us like for another company and then came back to be on GuideTech because one, they didn't understand what it was we were offering. So that's our fault on education. And like, you'll know me as like a person, I'm always like, how do I as an individual or the CEO contribute to any one single problem that an outfitter experiences or that a customer, a sportsman or woman contributes? Like I'm always like, okay, like how did I contribute? Right. But that's not a fundamental, they don't teach you that in business school. And
Right.
I'm not going to, guys don't go to business school to become outfitters. They don't, right? They
Right.
learn on the job. So the analogy that I would use as to like, why should you even consider changing the way you do things? Well, what happens when you're in the blind with clients and the first group of birds comes in, you're on the X and they flare immediately? Well, the first thing you're going to do is change something. You're going to go and guess and think and talk to the other guides and be like, hey, what do you guys think they're flaring off of, right? Sometimes it's just nothing, right? We understand that birds get, weary, but at the same time, if you're not changing or optimizing the spread or whatever you're trying to do to get the birds to come in, like, your clients are going to be like, well, they're not trying to do anything, right? Well,
Right.
that same issue in kind of conundrum can apply to the business side of your business. Is people know a lot of the people that are booking, it's funny, a lot of people, these people that are booking these trips are businessmen themselves. Therefore, they expect the business to be ran a certain way. And when you don't live up to those expectations of conducting good, honest business, that's when you run into the problem. That's when you run into the person tells the other person that place wasn't worth a shit, and they're not coming back, and then that person's never going to consider you as a customer, right? And like that all that means is that, if you're not changing something in your business, you're dying. But there's no such thing as, doing no work in getting results. Like, you cannot sign up for GuideTech and do literally nothing and get any results. Like,
Right.
if you like, that's not the way we conduct business. That you have to do something, right? That's all we're asking for you to
Right.
do is put the effort in. And most guides have not even considered this aspect of their business to be an issue. But when they change something, then they're like, wow, I got all this time back. I had no idea I was spending that much time. But if you just sit there and be like, well, the way I do it works, and you never consider changing, evaluate something that, may be within your control that, previously you didn't think was in your control, that can be a pivotal moment of growth in your business. And that's what happened when we created GuideTech, was we had to change something. And so we did. And that is why we have this product offering, right? And Garrett will tell you, even when we're looking at incentives for signing up new guides and outfitters or renewing clients, like, we're always questioning something. We have a core value here at Mallard Bay that says the change is growth, right? But that doesn't mean all you have to do is change to grow. Like, it means, and I wrote this down, so that's why I'm like reading word for word. All it means is that in order to grow, you have to look at what you're doing, question, is this really working, or have I just been doing it for so long that I'm resistant to trying or changing this specific portion of the business, right? And that's the main point we want to get across today, is that it sometimes the simple things matter a ton. And yes, if that's the way you take bookings, payments, that could be that. But there's tons of other little things that first, second, and maybe even third year outfitters get wrong, that we're here to come and tell you, hey, you're doing that wrong. Stop doing it, because we hear about it from customers, right? Because you're not going to get as much direct feedback as we will, right? Because they're going to come to us and be like, hey, can I get a refund? Or, this experience, I want you to know about this outfitter. Like, we're here to take that feedback and be like, hey, this is what they said. We don't know if what they said was true or not. We want to hear what you have to say about it. And at the end of the day, we both want the customer to be happy, right? Like the sportsman, and we're on your side as your support system, helping you manage your business, right? So it was a long-winded answer, but ultimately, that's the value we want to bring. We want to bring the value to you guys in the medium in which you are used to consuming, whether it be written, audio, or visual, and put this in a box and deliver it to you, being like, hey, this is what we see. We don't know if it applies to you or to anyone else, but here, this is what we're talking about. If you're interested, please listen. Consider it. But that's all we're asking for is, hey, hear us out and be a part of learning about Mallard Bay. I mean, we go through so many different things here. Like, we're growing a multi-million-dollar business here, and all we care about is listening to our customers and fixing their issues, whether it be issues with the product or fixing their lives, right, to make it easier for them to run their business.
Yeah, and going back to it, I think, like, and you had talked about it and touched on it, for us, how we had that inflection point with GuideTech, and we've had different inflection points where we've had to change. And so I think there's outfitters that you are performing at a level that, you're capping yourself, is what I'm getting at, is you can work and you will get results doing the same thing, potentially year over year, getting these same results year over year. Potential steady growth with economies being better and people being able to get out and hunt and stuff like that. But I think there's inflection points that you hit, and those are, you'll plateau at a certain point, and then it's time to look for new areas of change and growth to help you get up to that next level, to where you'll be capped again and there's more opportunities for change. And we've seen outfitters and we've seen ourselves kind of adapt to those different areas. I think, like, some a good thing to get outfitters and charters chewing on and thinking about when they leave this podcast. I know we spent a lot of time kind of talking about who we are and what we offer, but what kind of different points for the average charter, average hunting outfitter, what different parts of their business could they think about? How could I make a change here? What could they chew on and think about?
I think the number one thing that they can chew on, or the question they can kind of ask themselves, is it's not about the how, right? Like, everyone wants to know how, what, when, why to change, right? It's about who. Who needs to change? Who do you need to listen to that tells you, hey, you need to change? Why do you, who, when you want to get on the birds and you hire somebody, you look for a who. You don't care how they're doing it. Like, you really just care about who is doing it and are they successful. So ultimately, we're here to be the who for you, to just get general business advice about the industry, and also tell you about all of the different data points that we've collected about what outfitters do right and what they do wrong, so we can affirm that, hey, you're doing this right, or hey, maybe if you change this, it could take your business to the next level.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think we could look at a new tagline for GuideTech, the who for you. That was a good one. But But yeah, no, man, I agree with you. I think it definitely is the who, and it was a great point with the hunting as well. And I think it goes back to like what you're saying in your example with the birds flaring. If it's before the hunt and the birds aren't there, you're going to go and look, you're going to go and scout, you're going to put in the extra time, you're going to put in the extra effort to go and make that happen for those clients that are there. But now, how can we do that for people who haven't been touched? People who haven't gotten the opportunity to see these different outfitters. And I think one of the biggest things is, like, for me, going back to that why, is like, by growing this community, by outfitters choosing to change and grow and look for those areas where they can grow their business, not only does it reward them, but it rewards the community as a whole, because it's getting more people in front of the outdoors in a special way. I grew up DIY hunting. I was more going on guided fishing trips, but getting that opportunity to go on my first guided waterfowl hunt and fishing trip, those are the things that get you, those experiences get you hooked. The DIY, it has the journey aspect of it, where you're with your grandpa, your father. For me, that's how it was, getting outdoors, and like those are the core memories that I have going back. But when a kid gets to go out with his father on a guided hunting trip, and I mean, think about it, you were impacted in a completely different way to where you started Mallard Bay, and it's your passion and your lifestyle to improve it. But now we could get more people outdoors by these guys choosing to make a change and choosing to grow. And I think that is a deeper purpose than, padding your pockets or anything like that. But I truly think by choosing to make a change, it's not going to make your life more difficult. Yes, there is work, but like Logan said, there's people out there like us that are here to help you do that and have the expertise in those areas that you don't have to be an expert in. You just have to communicate with us and, make those changes with us along the way, and we'll do the heavy lifting. So, yeah, that's basically what I got for that. So,
I mean, look, I don't think we could end it in a better place, but I'll kind of like try and cap it off with kind of touching on the point that you made. The reason why you want to provide, and many of you may not need to be told why you provide good service, right?
Yeah.
But imagine the person who comes to your outfit for their first hunt, right? They did everything, they're gung-ho, excited, whatever they're, as a first hunter would be, a little bit nervous, a little bit, not knowing what's going on. And, something as simple as they get to the lodge and it's a little bit dirty. Then they go on the hunt and it's not that great. They don't understand the weather patterns. They don't understand how it works. And then, they ask about it and then they get snapped at, accidentally by a guide who's tired in the morning and, thinks this customer is like trying to tell them how to do his job. But in reality, they're just curious. And, that will give an outfitter, not only a outfit, that will give outfitting a bad rap. Right. And that's what we do not want, is for the industry itself to receive a bad rap because of the ones that are learning and trying to get started, but that can ruin it for everybody else. So we're here to help all walks of life of outfitters and guides. Ultimately, it's just, we don't know until we talk to you if we can, if what we're doing is the solution for you. That's why we won't sell you something here on the podcast, is because we don't know if it'll work for you as an individual. We don't know what you're struggling with, what your repeat client rate is, what, ultimately how much you're charging, how much does meals and lodging cost you versus how much you're charging for it. Are you making money? Those are things that we're going to talk about on this podcast, just topic after topic, hitting on all the points of the things that, you want to know, but no one else has talked about it in the industry. And that's our goal. So, please, follow us on Mallard Bay or GuideTech in order to stay up to date with the podcast. And leave us a review or leave a comment on a post. Be like, hey, y'all should talk about this. I hate it when outfitters do X, Y, Z, right? Tell us what you should talk about and we'll talk about it. That's the call to action here. And if you listened all the way to the end, thank you. As we're not expecting anybody to listen to the first one at least. So
No. I mean, one, I just want to say thank you to everyone who did listen to it all the way through, or even listen to it for a little bit. You won't hear it, but thank you. But for real, just subscribe to the podcast wherever you enjoy listening to it or watching it. It will be on all platforms that you can think of. And again, in conclusion, there's always opportunity to change. We have to embrace that as our core value as a company, that there's always different ways that we can look to change. And as you leave this, I know we talked a lot about ourselves and our product, but one of the biggest things is hang around, subscribe, like I said, so that you can hear these different ways that you can change and improve your business as a whole. So stick around, and thank you for listening to the first ever GuideTech podcast.
Hell yeah.